ride to Boston U, but my daddy couldn't pay the room and board. PS didn't have any black meter readers anywhere, and they said, well, we'll pay for you to go to Rutgers if you read meters, and we're going to pay you $72 a week. My daddy happened to drive me down there because I didn't have a car. He said, that boy going to work and go to school. You know, there wasn't a question as to who we were and what we were going to come. And like I said, you've seen the picture, Pooch. You know, my dad, the Afro Quartet of Newark.
No
what did
one
they know
knows
about the
that.
Afro Quartet
No
in
one knows of that.
1950?
No, man.
What did they know about Afro in 1950?
You know, I'm gonna sit here and I'm sitting and I'm listening just like our audience. And I have two gentlemen here that have seen some things and have been blessed to still be on the journey of life. But you're giving back as you always have, and I'm a product of that there from the both of you. I want to say to you both is that what I've seen the last of you all actually went through. You're speaking of Woolworks. I know of it, but I don't know of the sit-ins in Newark. I knew of seeing them on television down in the South. But I also want to say, which is such a beautiful sight, is to have two different perspectives of a way of life as a guideline to go by. And you both have been here on this earth and on this journey long enough to pass on that knowledge to those that understand that you have to have some belief somewhere, or there is no hope, and your faith is through.
It is now the minister, the young minister that is at Mosque number 25. Gives me big respect.
Is that Minister Hawk?
Yeah. Gives me
Muhammad, right?
big respect. But then I was around, you understand, in the late 60s and early 70s, and then because of my position in PSEG, I made sure that the late Dr. Verner, organization was funded because that was my job. The late Willie Simmons, who built all these houses, that was my job. I used to sit under, you know, the older men when the minister's daughters came here because he was going through prostate surgery and whatnot. When his daughter came, I made sure that, because you know I still have a bike, I don't do much riding, but I made sure that we had the rally and whatnot for black men, you know, to get their prostate, you know, checked. And so people said a lot of the Christian brothers didn't go for it. I said, why? I said, does cancer hurt a Muslim any less or more than it hurts a Christian? See, we get caught up in name calling, and all the books talk about people of the book. Am I talking right, sir?
That's right.
And at the end, the people of the book, if they don't come together, they don't have a choice.
Why is there a disparity? I think all religions, even the Jewish and all the others, what is that about the discrepancy of followings? Is it monetarily? Because it has to be two different levels, one for the heart and one for the mind. When I say that, once you understand the total concept, as you spoke of in the Quran and Islam, and you're speaking of in Christianity, of understanding they're the same, as you always speak here and there, and you speak of the Kanye thing, you have to meet the people where they are.
Right. And I keep telling you, Johnny Ray Youngboy and Minister Farrakhan, they like that. And he knows this. So they dealing in Brooklyn, and the dudes was selling drugs on the corner. I'm over there that Saturday. And they went inside and said, one of the kids came and said, no, you can't do that. So we're praying, we get up, go out, and they surround the phone booth and tell them, said, no, because off of Hector Street, there is a project. Said, no, you can't do this here. And the dude said, who said so? And the brothers from there, I said, we say so. we say so. And that was the end of that. The next, I'm over there on Hendrick Street where St. Paul's was at the time. It's still there. And I walk in because he does a play called The Ma'afa. And you've probably seen it where he does the African piece. And brothers are standing in the foyer and they're selling bean pies, they're selling Mama Speaks. Well, you know, I'm a young minister, this is my dog and he's my mentor. So I said, what's going on? And he said, do Muslims sell drugs? I said, no, sir. Do Muslims mug people? No, sir. And when he gets finished, he said, and I promised, you know, that I was going to help them open a masjid around the corner by the projects. And so we got to raise $25,000. And I'm sitting there going, my God, what is wrong with us? This brother has got food for the table. And I'm sitting there starving. And he's saying, come to the feast. And when you look at the teachings, first and foremost, and he said something that is so true. We don't teach this. There are no white prophets. The entire First Testament is written in Africa by Africans. We don't teach that. We don't teach that. You see the European and people call him Paul. There's no place that God changed his name. He was Paul in the Hebrew. He was Saul, Saul in the Hebrew, Paul in the Greek. And because he had did so much against the so-called Christian community at that time and the Jewish community, because they were Jews, the reality, and they weren't Jewish, they were Israelis. Let me correct that. Jews came along later, Jewish came along later, because there's a difference. But those of us that have studied, you want to talk about politics, Saul was a Palestinian Jew that was a Roman citizen. You mix that up. So he was about your complexion. Oh, Lord, he's a Palestinian. Hebrew, that's a Roman citizen. You want to talk about politics? See, we don't teach. And so they said, well, you know, Christ couldn't have been white. You don't hide a white boy with blonde hair and blue eyes in Egypt.
That was the trick.
All of that. See, what I see in your mind, and you talked about it, artificial intelligence brings about everything that is not real. As you know, my wife teaches as a matter of fact, she's on the board at Pillar. And right away, she gets a paper and she said, he ain't write this. Artificial intelligence wrote this.
Yeah, that's right.
And so what artificial intelligence, and this is just the Jethro James theory, and I told you this, Pooch, people say, oh, you a hillbilly. No, Jethro, Sheik of Midian, obedient one of God, father-in-law of Moses, father-in-law of Musa. If you and we don't even know who we are.
No,
where did we descend from?
Well, the question is, being that the books and everything are being taken off of the shelves, how do you go about teaching the young people now, because they don't have any interest in knowing of that happened before? They don't really care. They only care about right now. They're not even thinking about the future. Care to answer?
You got to get it now. Get it now and do the research and do all the things before it's gone, because pretty soon it'll be obsolete.
But they're not interested in learning about
nothing.
Well,
that's because these cell phones, you have to make them. Sometimes you have to take a child and you have to say, this is what you have to do. People, different nationalities do it all the time.
Yeah.
Before their child get a certain age, they say, you're going to be this, and you're going to do this until you become of age and be able to learn something yourself. Now, by the time they do that, if you practice something for 8 years or 20 years, that's almost like a doctor's degree. You know, you got a kid that learns how to play football. You take this kid, play the football, what's his name, Patrick Mahomes or
Right.
Steph Curry. This high, they was playing basketball. So by the time they get 18, 20, they have the science of the game, and they know it because they've been doing it all these years, but they're still young. So you have to give it to these kids early and get with them. Everybody's not going to find a mentor on the outside. So the closest mentors is the ones that's closest in the family.
Now, stay there. I'm coming right to you. The household structure that I understood growing up in Clare, Muhammad, and my mother and father both were Christians, they were parallel. There was no differentiation. As my uncle there always says, there was no attention deficit at all. So, what's the difference now? Everyone goes on the crutch of special needs.
If I may, because you know your aunt teaches part-time special needs.
You get ready to start, Shaheed, I know it.
There's a couple of things. If there was no man in the house, there was a grandpa or an uncle, somebody, there was going to be a male figure in the house that would, and they would ask you simple things like, what's wrong with you, boy? You know, it wouldn't be no cussing at you.
No.
It wouldn't be, see, that's the other thing. We didn't hear called out of our names. We didn't hear that.
No.
And then it would be said, well, I understand Mr. Shaheed saw you the other week, not day, week. And I told you, I don't want you down, you know, Mr. Shaheed, oh.
He's lying?
He lying?
Now,
Now,
he lying?
you can't even say that, but there
Oh,
was
we gonna go down there?
Yeah, there was a standard set, and there was a consequence to all your actions. My brother, Jerry, and you know Jerry, my brother, he was never good with as my father called it, schooling. But he could build the studio.
Right.
And so my brother just retired as vice president of the unions at Markel International. Okay, he don't have the degrees and stuff. Made more money than all and living well. I say that because my father said this to me. This man with the 6th grade education, he said all of y'all are different. See, there were griots. When you said, and I heard our brother say, how they're going to learn. Remember, everything that was taught to them was through oral tradition. It is Afrocentric that somebody's mind was well enough to tell you about this. The movie Roots, all of that was given through the oral tradition, you know. We knew there were some writings because when we looked at hieroglyphics and other things, but every group had a way of communicating. And the other thing was they poured into their young. In the prophet Hosea says this, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. And then the next line says, because thou hast forsaken the knowledge of your God, you shall be no more priest to me. I'm not hearing your prayer. Third thing it says is that you'll be no more priest to me because you have rejected the knowledge of your God. Next verse says something that's scary. That which was once your pride has become ignorant, and now they are accursed.
Ooh.
We took that Mr. Hill's boy, you know, that's Mary's boy right there. They knew our pedigree. They knew where we came from, and then it wasn't no question. Oh boy, you know, you gonna get your lessons now, boy. You hear me? You come on, Pooch.
Right.
That don't. My father
I'm
couldn't.
laughing because
My father couldn't.
you said the same.